So today is March 12th, 2019, and I wanted to talk about my experience with healing my religious trauma. It's been a long process, and ultimately, in the end, it was plant medicine that helped me transform my anger and let it go. I know a lot of people don't agree with the use of plant medicine. Some of my family included in that, which is kind of why maybe it's been so hard for me to do this video, making myself very vulnerable and open and just being honest is always scary and risky because you can't control how other people perceive. But what I experienced was so amazing. And for my family who truly know the pain that I've been through and the anger that I've been carrying towards the church, I guess this video is mostly for them. I want to share what happened within myself, my change of heart, and then I guess I'll just leave it up to them to decide how they feel about that. So I have been a member of the Aclavon Native American Church for 2.5 years now, but I only started using plant medicine and sitting in sacred ceremony. It's been 1.5 years since I started that journey, and I've had 5 TP sessions, 5 experiences in the TP, and every single experience has been completely different. And I've sat down with completely different intentions each time as well. But all the work that I did before this last session in January, which was a women's only session, the 4 times that I sat with the medicine before definitely laid a foundation and started my healing process, even though to get me to the point where I could release that anger finally. The medicine meets you where you are. It doesn't give you anything that you're not ready to handle or face. You might not think you're ready, but if you're facing it and if you are experiencing it, then that means you are ready to handle it and ready to work through that demon or whatever it is you're trying to process. And that's where I was in January when I had my last session. I was super pissed and angry about my son's mission and the church in general, the LDS Mormon Church, which you're not supposed to call it that anymore. Screw them. I will call it what I want. So I still have a bit of sass in me towards the church, and that I will always have. What was changed and transformed in me was the deep-seated, deep-rooted pain and anger that I have been carrying for a lifetime. I grew up in this church, was indoctrinated half my children into the belief system. And when I left 8 years ago, there was not just my pain that I was carrying, but there was generational pain of women in my family that was passed down. And I will say, this is hard, that I don't believe there is a woman in my immediate family or my extended family, as in aunts, uncles, grandparents, great-grandparents. I don't think there's a woman in those generations that were not abused in our family in some way by the patriarchy of the church, by the men in our lives, and because of that mindset of the men rule. And so the pain I was carrying definitely was my own, plus generations of abused ancestors, abused women from this religion. There is no doubt in my mind, but it was not something I was conscious of until my TP session. So sitting with the medicine, it changes you. And not just the mental, emotional, spiritual side, but physically. And I really got to experience that in this last session in January when I went. I had so much anger, and I was able to express it in a very safe environment with other women who just held me and just listened to my pain. And I was able to let it just pour out of me, which was a beautiful experience. I've had little tastes of that with other people, but to just vomit it all out and say, this has been inside me too long and I don't want to carry it anymore, and to just physically and verbally throw it out was amazing. It was a really beautiful experience. Sitting with my second round of medicine, the full weight of the pain I was carrying and the anger that I was carrying, not just my own, but like I said, the generations of pain that I was carrying came to the surface. And physically, I could feel it. And it felt like in those hours that I had ran a marathon. I used to be a runner. I know what that feels like, to completely exhaust your body. And that's what I felt like when all that came up to the surface inside of me. The pain and the anger, sitting with that was just too incredibly difficult. I had to I just couldn't carry the weight of it. And I laid down on the hard floor of the teepee and just stared at the fire and felt that pressure on top of me. It was overwhelming and felt like almost more than I could bear. Like I just wanted to literally lay down on that teepee floor and pass out. Like I didn't want to consciously keep holding that space of pain and anger. And I can't tell you exactly how long it lasted. I would say an hour or two that I sat with that deep, deep, incredible pain, weighing my body down. And then a beautiful soul in the circle of women came to the fire and had a beautiful releasing of her medicine. And in that moment, I just get goosebumps and chills thinking about it. I I was able to release my pain and anger that I was carrying with through her into the fire. Sometimes you purge and sometimes you don't. Depends on what the medicine is doing in you. And for me, I needed to keep the medicine inside of me, but at the same time, I needed someone to release into the fire so that I could energetically give them what I was carrying. And I had a conversation with this woman after it was over, because there was such a strong connection at that moment when she was releasing into the fire and I was allowing all this pain and anger to come out of me and into her and into the fire. She was definitely an energetic vessel for me. And I talked to her afterward and thanked her. She's like, it just came out of the blue. She's like, I wasn't sick. I wasn't expecting that. And all of a sudden she just had to throw up. And I'm like, well, I said, I'm sorry, but it was me. I needed somebody in that teepee to release for me, because I knew I wasn't going to throw up the medicine myself, but I needed somebody else to do it. And it came to her and she did it, and I so appreciated it. And I just wanted to thank her. And she's like, I knew that it was for you. And that was just really beautiful, because we hadn't said anything to each other in the teepee. There was no words spoken at all, but energetically we both knew that she was helping me to release what I couldn't physically release, but energetically had to get out. And after that experience, it was like the weight was just gone and I could sit back up. I felt so good. I felt like I had purged in the fire, even though I hadn't. And my body, this all just sounds strange, but I felt like it was physically changing things inside of me, that that pain that was genetically stuck to me was no longer there. It felt like my cells, my DNA, everything was just changing with this release of pain and anger. And my husband, I am so grateful that he supported me in this session. He drove me to the teepee and he picked me up and brought me home. And I was able to share with him a little bit of that experience of my pain and anger being taken from me. And I pretty much bawled the whole way home, and he just listened. And he was so kind in his just everything. I just really appreciate it. And my husband has not been supportive of this path. He has not wanted me to be on it. And so I get that was huge for him to support me in that way. And it was beyond beautiful. And we came home. We had a very good experience with the family. The family supported me. And then I just went to bed and was allowed to rest and sit with my candle, my own personal fire, and allow the transformation to continue. So the real tests came when my son's emails started coming, right? That was on a Saturday. He usually writes home on a Monday. That next week, I was waiting for the old reactions to come through, and the pain and the daggers in my heart and all of that. And it was so incredible to sit and read his email and not feel anything, not feel any of the pain or the anger. And then just a week or two after my TP session, the church changed its mind about missionaries being able to call home. They're, in my opinion, trying to be less cult-like. And that was a really good, much needed change. Although I will say I'm so grateful that the change came after my TP session and after my incredible healing, because up until that point, my pain and anger was so intense and strong. I didn't go to my son's farewell. I didn't help prepare him for anything regarding his mission. And this was twofold, partly because it was just too painful for me, and partly because I knew that stuff triggered me, and I would probably say or do something to cause more pain and more distance in our relationship. So I just took a step back. I just took myself out of situations that would cause me pain and a potential problem. So I didn't go to his farewell. I did not go to the airport to see him off. There's no freaking way I could have done that. Either one of those things. And when he called home on Christmas, I refused to talk to him. And he knew that. He knew that I did not want to speak to him. But my family, after 45 minutes, totally pressured me and guilted me into coming up and seeing him and talking. So I did talk to him, but it was miserable. I was miserable. It was the biggest awkward moment, because everybody knew I didn't want to be there and I didn't want to see him in that way. And I had nothing to say other, of course I miss him and I loved him, but I didn't, it was just too painful. And, but I did it. A brief 5 minutes of the phone call, he was able to say hi to me, and I said hi to him, and that we loved each other. And then I went downstairs and just cried my eyes out. I was so mad because I was fine until my family forced me to be in front of him. So when the church changed that regulation and missionaries could call home, the first week he wasn't allowed to call home because every mission president does things a little bit different. And his mission president wanted to talk to all the missionaries before they had their first phone call home. Other missionaries were able to call. That was announced on a Friday. The change was announced on a Friday, and Monday, P-Day, is a lot of missionaries have their P-Day on Monday. The missionary who died just a month ago or so, he was able to call home on that first Monday, and his family got to talk to him, just a few days before he passed. And that's another thing that just pisses me the hell off. His conditions in his home were not safe. There are two missionaries right now in Russia in prison because the church truly should not be in Russia. Going to go off on a little tangent here. So the church does things illegally. They work around the rules of each individual countries. My son is in Peru illegally. His visa, was given to him on the condition that he was coming home, that he had a return ticket. And yes, he had a return ticket with no intention of using it. That's how the church gets around things. And in Russia, they're calling themselves volunteers instead of missionaries. Well, fuck that. They're missionaries. They are out there to preach the gospel and to convert people. And so they're lying to the Russian government, and it makes 100% sense that these two missionaries eventually got thrown in prison. It's shocking that more haven't been taken. Truly, the church should get out of Russia. Russia does not want us there. And I just learned today, a lot of things have been coming out about this with the missionaries in Russia. A lot of things have been coming out. And a missionary wrote home, and it's been going around Facebook. I posted it on my wall, saying that They were instructed to destroy records of the church, back 20 years worth of records that they are working on destroying for the church, because these two men got arrested and they had to move out of their apartment because the police were coming and they suspected that they were going to search it. The church does not have the safety as a priority of its missionaries. Missionaries are the slaves. They're the pawns of the church. They can be replaced, just like, this young man who unfortunately lost his life. Somebody's just going to go right back in there and replace him. It's not going to change. Sad, but that's the hard truth about it. So I've talked to my son twice on the phone since this change has come in place. So there's 3 weeks. It's been 3 weeks since they made that change, and I've been able to talk to him twice. And without this healing session in this teepee, I don't know that I could have done it. And both times I waited for the pain. I waited for the tears. I waited for any sign that I was still carrying that or a spark of that. And it never came. Yesterday, we were able to talk to him. And my 12-year-old, thankfully, my son was still at his computer and able to call after the kids got home from school. So I talked to him before kids came home from school, and then he talked to the rest of the kids once they were off from school. And my 12-year-old, it was so good for him. He just misses his brother like crazy. But it's always, always hard when they have to say goodbye. And so he came in the kitchen to me when his turn was up, and he was talking, and my son, missionary son, was talking to another family member. My 12-year-old came to me and just gave me this hug, and the look on his face was just so heartbreaking. I just hugged him, and yeah, there were tears in that moment, and that's fine. It wasn't the angry tears that I've had in the past. So anyways, I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do with this channel. I probably will just keep it up to update things that come. It's going to be strictly for me talking about the church, and my experience with it, my experience with having a missionary. But yeah, my anger is pretty much gone. It's interesting because like today, when I saw that thing about the missionaries and them destroying records in Russia, and still thinking of how many more missionaries do we have in Russia that need to come out and need to come home. There was a wave of anger. There was a wave of, holy fuck, I can't believe the church does this shit. But that's it. I can feel that. And that's a legitimate feeling. And it passes. It's not something I'm carrying and holding on to like I had for decades. That's gone. And the plant medicine took it and changed it. And thank God that was an option for me, because how I was living with that pain and anger, it's not a way to live. I truly wanted to have forgiveness in my heart towards the things that were done to me because of the church, abuse that was done to me in my life because of this patriarchal religion, and then the abuse that had been passed down to me through my ancestors and through generations of pain and shit that these women have had to carry, and they've just passed it on because there wasn't a soul in my extended family, not one, that has reached the point where I'm at, where they could release it and let it go. So a lot of gratitude in my heart today, and I'm grateful I made it through this without crying as well. Being able to talk about my son and his mission has always brought tears. And so this was good. to just be able to speak my heart and share. And this was a long one. So if anyone's made it this far, thank you. Thank you for listening. And until next time, I'll just say namaste.